So on its surface, this might seem like a little bit of a strange video. Why would anybody be comparing the camera on the Z Fold 4 to the camera on the Pixel 7 Pro? They seem like such different devices, but there is a good reason for me to be doing this, beside the fact that they just happen to be the two best cameras on smartphones that I have, so that would make a fun comparison for me. The bigger reason is that I am a massive fan of folding smartphones like the Z Fold 4 or, of course, the Surface Duo. And in fact, one of the only reasons you would ever get me to consider switching from something like this to something like this, which I would consider to be kind of a boring old school slab phone that just doesn't do a lot for me, is if the camera was indeed far and away better. So in this video, that's what we're going to find out. Is the camera on the Pixel 7 Pro so much better than the Z Fold 4 that you would want to actually give up that folding goodness to have a camera on that level? Let's dig into the photo samples and talk about them now. So I have a whole album here on Google Photos of exactly this, Fold versus Pixel. Now, one thing to keep in mind here, and I guess I should talk about this before we go on, are the camera specs themselves. So on the Pixel 7 Pro, we have, I believe, a 50 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 48 megapixel 5x optical zoom. I believe that is correct off the top of my head. On the Z Fold 4, it is a 50 megapixel primary, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10 megapixel 3x optical zoom. So there's some big variations there. Very similar in terms of the standard and the ultra wide. However, that telephoto seems to be a pretty big differentiating factor. Let's see if that actually pans out, though, as we begin looking at these pictures. So let's start things off talking about this primary lens, and we're always going to go Pixel 7, then Z Fold. So that's always going to be the order. So this is the Pixel 7 Pro first. This is a picture I like to replicate in these tests because you get a lot of dynamic range being able to happen here. How does it handle the shadows underneath, the light in the sky, and then the details in the trees there? Well, if we zoom in, you can see that the Pixel 7 Pro is doing a pretty good job. Decent amount of detail there in the shadow. If we zoom in here, let's find some of these nice crunchy orangish leaves as they're changing for the fall. It's doing a good job. I mean, it's a Pixel camera, nothing too shocking here. It does look very good. When we go to the Z Fold 4, you're going to see a very noticeable thing though, and that is that the saturation is absolutely cranked through the roof. Those leaves that look kind of orange before now look like they're on fire. They're a much stronger orange, much more intense green, more intense yellows over here. The details underneath are very similar. So this is going to be kind of the theme here. It's going to be a point of preference. Do you like the more muted, more natural colors here, or the colors pumped through the roof on the Z Fold 4? Let's keep moving to another photo that will demonstrate this very well. This is a vine that my neighbor refuses to get rid of. That originates on their side of the fence. And, you know, although I will say this, it looks quite pretty now. It is very annoying most of the time, but I'll use it as a photo here. You can see this is not portrait mode. This is, you know, by virtue of the fact that both these cameras have a very large sensor, we get this nice focus fall off that's happening and actually in sensor, not being done in software. Going to the Fold, and oh my goodness, look at those colors. They're absolutely cranked up. They both look good, but your preference is going to be the deciding factor here. Which one do you think looks better? One is much cooler, one is much warmer. The detail is almost identical. This is the ultra-wide shot on the Pixel 7 Pro, and it looks pretty good, right? Let's zoom into the middle here where, in theory, your detail will be the best, and I think it does a pretty good job here. We get a little bit of grain on the edges in this area in particular, in the darker areas. Let's go to the Fold. It's really, really similar, although I believe it is, yes, quite a bit wider than the Pixel. The colors are, again, pumped up a bit further. And the detail looks to be in a similar place. Both are okay. Neither one is like a truly fantastic camera, although the Pixel does have an extra trick in terms of their ultra wide. That is autofocus, which will allow you to take some macro photos. And you can see that here on this Spider-Man action figure from many years ago. You're able to get really, really close. And on the Fold, if you try and do the same thing, you're going to be out of focus. Now, you could go into Pro mode and set your focus to the most close you can get it, and then maybe digitally crop in and get close. But this is just going to be much more automatic and much easier to do. Now what we have here is the 2x zoom on the Pixel 7 Pro. That is because in your camera app, it will show 0.6, 1x, 2x, and then 5x. We did the 2x here. This is a digital crop. It's important to keep that in mind as we zoom in here. I think that the detail is pretty good as this, kind of clears up a little bit. It's okay. Considering that it's just a digital crop, I think it does a pretty passable job. The colors are what you would expect. Now on the Fold 4, we're not doing 2x, we're doing 3x. And the reason is because in that camera app, it does 0.6, 1x, and 3x because the 3x is an optical zoom. And I think you can see here the advantage of actually having an optical zoom in this instance. For one, the colors are continuing to be way, way blown out compared to the 7 Pro. Of course, that is still a subjective preference, but the detail is better. You're able to zoom in even further. And I think that is a win for the Fold. But I mean, yeah, we're talking about a device that, if we're being honest here, it is at a bit of an advantage here because all we have here is a 5x. So anywhere from 1x to 5x, all it can do is digital, whereas the Fold has a 3x. So it can go from 1 to 3 and switch to the optical sooner. So there's sort of a dead zone in the zoom on the Pixel where it has to utilize software, and that software is just not going to be as good as the hardware solution on the Fold. Now, once we move past the 3x into any further zoom, well then, if we get closer to 5, Pixel's going to have an advantage there. Let's move forward. And now we have exactly this. This is 5x optical zoom on the Pixel 7 Pro, and it looks really, really good, right? Like these details at 5x are absolutely rock solid. I mean, it's not as good as a 1x, obviously, but yeah, we're at 5x. This was zoomed way in. And so I did 5x on my Fold 4, and you can see where that advantage is. Obviously, the colors are still crazy, but if we zoom into some details here, yeah, the Pixel absolutely is winning this battle. So at lower zooms, the Fold wins. At higher zooms, past 5, that's where the Pixel is going to have a victory. And then if we pump it all the way up to 30x, this is 30x on the Pixel 7 Pro. And, look, you're not going to want to do this very often because it just frankly doesn't look that good. But at 30x, it's pretty impressive. Do the same thing on your Fold, and it's absolutely going to fall apart. So again, larger zooms, definitely a win for the Pixel. All right, so this is a selfie taken with the selfie camera, of course, on the Pixel 7 Pro. Details are good. It's a good looking selfie. I really like the way Pixel selfies look. No exception here on the Z Fold. It's a little bit more washed out. It's a little bit lighter. I think that's, for me, a pretty big win for the Pixel going to portrait mode. Same kind of thing. I think that some of the cutout here around my hair, all phones kind of struggle with this stuff, and the Pixel is no exception on the Fold. Maybe the cutout's a bit better because the blur is a little bit softer, but I like the colors better here. My glasses got royally destroyed on the Pixel and not on the Z Fold. So maybe portrait mode, maybe doing a bit better on the Fold, but again, your opinion will determine that. Switching to the primary camera though and flipping it around, man, that is absolutely a fantastic shot. I love the contrast. I love the shadows. Really, really nice picture. And then on the Fold, it's pretty good too, right? It's brighter, it's more colorful. This is a big preferential thing. The details are almost identical. Both look really good. Let's go to portrait mode. Portrait mode on the Pixel's primary camera is unbelievably good to me. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. On the Z Fold, I think the blur kind of does a little too much. It gets a little weird here. It gets a little bit weird here. So on the primary camera, I would give this pretty handily to the Pixel. Let me know what you think about this in the comments though. So these next few shots are going to be kind of interesting because what I was trying to do is I was trying to take the exact same picture at the exact same time with both phones in portrait mode. And you're going to notice something. Beyond just how the photos look, notice how much quicker the shutter was on the Pixel. It's almost instantaneous, whereas the Fold is always a step behind. So on the Pixel 7 Pro here, I think this looks pretty good. It's mostly in focus. And keep in mind, this is clearly not a shot of a stationary target. Let's go to the Fold. And you can see how much, two things. One, how much further things have moved, but two, how much wider the angle is here. So with the Pixel, it does zoom in a bit. It says 1x, but it's definitely cropped in. On the Fold, it says 1x, and it's definitely not cropped in. So in terms of the stylistic approach, you can decide which one you think looks better, but notice that the Pixel has the far faster shutter speed. We'll do it again. Here's another shot, and then on the Fold, things have progressed even further. Now, I will tell you this, that there's part of me that thinks that maybe, just maybe, the Fold 4 has a nicer looking portrait mode on these shots. Look at the detail, look at the blur there maybe, and let's go to the next one. I really like the detail and the overall color tone. The details in the fur, look at that. On the fold, maybe even over the Pixel, but that shutter lag is a bit of a problem. Looks pretty good going to the fold though. Okay, we lost focus of Rutherford's head here, but overall, look at the detail on her fur. Got some weirdness going on here, so there's going to be preference to this, of course. On both portrait modes, though, you can hit 2x and zoom in a bit so that you have a more flattering look. Now, on the Pixel, of course, that is going to be done digitally, whereas on the Fold, it's actually going to do 3x and do that optically. So this is the 2x digital zoom portrait mode on the Pixel 7 Pro, and guys, I got to tell you, it doesn't look good. It looks weird. The details look weird. It's grainy. It's strange looking. The colors are gone. Let's go to the Fold. And I mean, do I need to tell you anything? I mean, obviously it's a lot warmer, but I mean, look at the detail difference there. So that is a big win. If you want to actually use the zoom to telephoto on your portrait shots, the Z Fold is going to absolutely demolish what the Pixel 7 Pro is doing. Let's talk about night mode now. So this was just before sunset. It was relatively dark. This is the Pixel 7 Pro, and I think it looks pretty good. Let's zoom in, get a look at some of the details here, and I think that's pretty solid. It was relatively dark out. The Z Fold 4, though, is pretty close. It's actually brightening things up a bit more stylistically. I think I prefer the look of the Pixel because this is a little brighter than it really was in reality, and we get more grain here. So I think night mode in this instance is a win for the Pixel. Inside, again, lights were turned off. Not that you can tell this, but here is your Pixel and here is your Z Fold. Very, very similar shots. Both do a really good job with low light with these big sensors, and they don't take very long. It's a pretty quick exposure to get these shots. So now we're going to take a look at a few different video samples and compare those as well. Okay, so we are shooting video at 1080p. This is the default settings. This is how most people are going to shoot their video. Most people are not going to change their settings. They're just going to roll with it. So pay attention to the detail, the sound, the stabilization in particular, and the colors as we walk around here. We are now replicating the exact same thing on my Galaxy Z Fold 4 as we walk through. Again, pay attention to those same things, the detail, the color, the sound, and the stabilization. Say hi to Rose as we replicate that same shot. Okay, so this is the cinematic mode on the Pixel 7 Pro's camera. The background should be being blurred out around me. How convincing is this effect? It's basically portrait mode, but in video form. Let me know what you think. My dog is bumping my tripod. And now we're replicating the same thing, cinematic mode as they call it, on the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4. How does this look by comparison? So I won't dig too deep into the video aspect because I'm just not a big video shooter and I don't have a lot of experience breaking them down, but to my eye, I think that the Pixel's probably doing a little bit better job in that automatic blurring thing. I think it looked a little bit better, the stabilization and the colors, the details. I feel like the Pixel looked a little bit better to my eye, but you can feel free to comment down below what you guys think. So where does that leave us overall though? Does the Pixel 7 Pro's camera do enough to make me think, wow, I could actually give up my folding phone to use this thing full time forever? I don't think it does. I think that the Z Fold 4 does more than enough to stand up to the Pixel. I mean, in years gone by, I can remember back with the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 3, that Pixel camera was so much better than everything else on the market that I used the Pixel 3 despite the fact that it had a bad battery, something that really bothered me. But that camera was so good. Same thing for the 2 XL. I had an LG V30 that I really liked, but I kept going back to that Pixel 2 XL because the camera just demolished everything on the market. Well, now, the Pixel camera is still really, really good. Don't get me wrong at all. It's very, very strong. However, everybody's camera is really good at this point. So the differentiating factor for me would not be the camera on the Pixel 7 Pro. I will have a full review of the 7 Pro coming out very soon. Spoiler alert, I'm really liking it so far. We're about a full day in at this point. So I'll probably have a video kind of recapping the first 24 hours, maybe dropping tomorrow sometime. And like I said, it's been very, very solid so far. Battery life's been very good as well. But we'll get into that stuff later in another video. So for this one, that's kind of where I'm going to leave you guys. Let's talk about it in the comments down below. Which camera do you think looked better? Were you surprised about anything about how the Fold did, how the Pixel did? Let's talk about it. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.